Hey there, football fans! Welcome back to Thorn FC. I hope that your team had a good season. But if you're a Blues fan, I'm sure you're mad already. I mean, you should be. Chelsea's a great club and this season was embarrassing to say the least. Bad transfer moves, impulsive decisions, and players changing to their kits in the hallways. To sum it up, total chaos. Today, we'll be analyzing Todd Boehly's tumultuous first year in charge of Chelsea and where things went wrong. Strap yourselves in, because we have a lot to unpack. Roman Abramovich is forced to sell Chelsea due to his links with Putin after almost 20 years in charge. Todd Boehly and a consortium of investors complete the most expensive team transaction of all time in a deal worth £4.25 billion. At the time, some Chelsea fans feared the worst, but it was nothing more than paranoia. I mean, Boehly was already the owner of two big American franchises, so he wasn't a complete doofus. Or was he? He even came with his own tactics and decided to show them to Tuchel, his very own Boehly ball, the 4-4-3. Call him stupid all you want, but it would work. I mean, one extra player, are you kidding me? Now you just have to buy FIFA to make it official. So you can already tell that his relationship with Tuchel didn't exactly start on the right foot. 3 months later, and the season had already begun. Chelsea had made some bold moves in the transfer market, spending big bucks on reinforcements. On the other hand, they barely tried to make any money on player sales, with the most expensive departure being Werner to Leipzig for £18 million. Tuchel wasn't too pleased, as he now didn't fully control the team, as many of the club targets, such as Anthony Gordon, were now being picked by the board and not the coach. A couple of weeks into the season, the situation escalated, as Boehly interrupted Tuchel's halftime team talk because he brought some friends and wanted them to meet the team, which a German coach obviously refused. And the last straw was when the board renewed Armando Broja's contract after the player was given marching orders by the coach. He even benched Broja and started Aubameyang, who wasn't fully fit against Dinamo Zagreb. Chelsea lost that match and Tuchel was gone. It had to happen. Tuchel was sacked after a lackluster start of the season. Chelsea had already lost 3 times and were sitting in the middle of the table. Plus, the majority of the players didn't trust the coach anymore, so it was time for a change. And here came the new man at the helm, Graham Potter. The man who turned an average Brighton side into a team that was competing for a place in Europe. Boehly had found his manager. And to be honest, it really seemed like the right call at the time, since Potter won 5 matches in a row in his first weeks in charge, including an impressive 3-0 away victory against AC Milan. And although we suffered 3 straight losses before club football paused in mid-November, fans were still optimistic and hoping the club would bounce back and improve after the winter transfer market. Some of you who watch Throne FC regularly might know that I'm from Portugal, and I really don't support or hate any Premier League club. I pay attention to what they do, of course, but I don't really care if they're successful in their transfer deals or not. But what happened with this man, it's just shady. Picture this, you're fighting to win the league, and barely have any spending power, so you have to be as precise as possible with the players you bring to your club in order to profit. And that's exactly what Benfica did with Enzo Fernandes. They snatched him up from River before any European giants started paying real attention to him, and it paid off, since he was perhaps the most important piece in their impressive season up until the World Cup. The obvious plan was to let him go in the summer in order not to compromise the season and still make a big profit. If someone wanted to buy him in January, they would have to pay the full clause. So guess what Chelsea did? They promised they would pay the clause to Benfica, and then talked to the player, sold them the dream of Premier League and Champions League glory, mentioned big bonuses and wages, and that was it. He was sold on the idea. But the thing was, Chelsea didn't really want to pay the full release clause. Besides, they had many other targets, including Moises Caicedo, who also required a big investment. So the Blues then communicated to Benfica that they wouldn't pay the release clause and would instead offer £80 million plus a player in return. You see what I'm getting and why it's a dirty strategy? They sell the dream to the player and then pull out the initial offer. The player already wants to leave, so in this case Benfica is basically forced to sell Enzo for less and compromise the entire season, or keep a player that, mentally, isn't there anymore. Enzo said he was staying to Benfica fans, but behind the scenes he threatened to expose his club's executives from preventing the move to Stamford Bridge. In the end, as you already know, the move went through, but Chelsea had to pay the full clause. Nonetheless, the Águias, despite being undefeated up until that point and with a huge gap over second place, would crash out of every cup competition. They did win the league though, but only on the last match day after several bad results. I know I'm making a video for Premier League fans, but this type of businesses makes me sick and is killing football for everybody else. And nope, I'm not a Benfica fan, at all. But hey, after a total of £600 million spent and with the best young player of the World Cup in their ranks, they would finally improve for sure, right? Right? Nope. After the World Cup, things got even worse. In the first 2 months of the year, Chelsea only won once. And although eliminating Dortmund gave some oxygen to the dying reign of Graham Potter, more bad results followed, and after a defeat against Aston Villa, he was given the sack. 6 months in charge, a new fashion look, but 12 wins in 31 matches left the Blues out of every competition except the Champions League and with a sour taste in their mouths. Just a week later, Boehly hired the third manager of the season, the returning Frank Lampard. Not the most inspiring signing since the man left the Blues in 2021 with a 52% win rate, while in Everton and Derby he couldn't even have a positive win-loss record. But hey, it couldn't be worse than Potter, right? Wrong. And it immediately showed how bad of idea it was to hire him, as Lampard lost his first 6 matches in charge, including defeats in both ends of the quarters against Real Madrid. And now that we've reached the end of the season, Lampard has also reached the end of the line as Chelsea manager, and perhaps even as a Premier League manager. I really don't know if any top team will ever want to have him as a coach after this embarrassing stint. 1 win, 2 draws, and 8 defeats as Chelsea's manager is a great stain in any resume, but I guess time heals all wounds and I hope he can still bounce back. Now that the dust has settled and a new coach is coming in, it's time to take a look at all the toys that Boehly bought and what could be their future. By February, there were reports that the dressing room wasn't even big enough to fit all the players, so there's gotta be a cleanup in the club. Looking at all the players that Chelsea bought this past season, I think we can put them into 4 different categories. The first, players who could be fundamental next season, definitely Enzo Fernandes and Wesley Fofana. The second are the players who still need time to adjust, but should remain in the club without great immediate expectations. Mikhailo Mudryk, Benoit Badiashile and Oni Madueke. The third are the typical Chelsea loanies. I can unfortunately see David Fofana fitting perfectly into this already old stereotype. Plus Carney Chukwuemeka, who could benefit from a loan to another Premier League side. And finally, the ugly, who should be sold as soon as possible. Whether it was because of injuries, overhype, or simply because they were past that prime, I believe these players shouldn't be a part of the next Chelsea project. Of course, I didn't include the players that were on loan at Stamford Bridge, because in both cases it's unlikely that the club will try to get them on a permanent basis. The main thing this season has taught us about this Chelsea side is there can always be a new low. So no, I don't think that Chelsea is guaranteed to have a great season next year, unlike Boehly, who thought that Champions League qualification was guaranteed for the Blues. God damn, this guy is so dumb. It's clear that the team lacks unity, and perhaps their performances this season got worse and worse because they simply didn't have any realistic goals to fight for. I'm really looking forward to what Chelsea can do next year, especially after the latest reports that Boehly will act more as an investor and not spend so much time in the club. If you really think about it, the 2023-24 season can be a defining mark in the Blues' history. Chelsea have had bad seasons in the past, but they have always bounced back immediately and sometimes in spectacular fashion. So if they can qualify to the Champions League next year, I really can't be positive about their future. Look at Liverpool in the beginning of the last decade, for example. Looking at the current landscape of the Premier League, where the bar is getting higher and higher by the season, it takes a lot to even reach top 4. City are basically the best team in the world. Arsenal have a young squad far from reaching their prime yet. Man United seem to be on their way back, slowly improving under Ten Hag. Newcastle have a lot of money to spend, and even without going crazy in the transfer market, managed to clinch Champions League qualification. Plus, you can never count Liverpool out. But more importantly, I wanna know, what do you think? Are Chelsea bouncing back after this terrible season, or is Boehly's time as Chelsea's owner doomed to end in failure? Let me know in the comments below and let's have a discussion.